I'm Kristen Prasad, minister to kids and families at First Baptist Huntsville. And today I'm joining some friends at Second Miles Preschool in the Terry Heights neighborhood. Second Mile is a ministry whose mission is to connect every individual to the love of Jesus by serving neighborhoods, strengthening schools, and empowering homes. The children who attend preschool here represent the diverse community they come from, and they are beautiful. These kids love coming to school. Their joy is visible on their faces. In spite of the challenges many of their families face, these kids have the opportunity to rise above their circumstances. They're taught about the love of Christ, and they experience a deep sense that all is right with their world. Joy and happiness are easy to confuse, and a myth has grown up around Christians and happiness. The myth that real Christians are happy all the time. Today, we're going to dispel the myth about happiness and uncover the truth about joy. When I started college, I knew no one, but I became fast friends with my sweet mate, Sarah. I don't remember how we became aware of our shared faith, but I learned that Sarah was a new Christian who had chosen a life of following Christ through the Young Life Club at her high school. When it came time to expand our circle of friends, Sarah and I attended the Christian groups on campus to find the one that fit. We settled at InterVarsity Christian Fellowship with a group of wonderful, quirky, earnest young people who loved the Lord. Sarah and I went to their worship gatherings, joined small groups, ate lunch with them after church, and joined them for social events. They became our people. As the year continued, Sarah and I each got involved in other things. Sarah began acting in drama productions. We both had classes, so we were no longer together all the time. By the end of spring semester, Sarah had gradually drifted away from InterVarsity gatherings. When I asked her why, she said, "I just can't do it anymore. They're always so chipper and upbeat. They always smile. I can't keep that up." Sarah is undoubtedly not the only person who ever left a Christian circle because the emotional pressure was too much. Maybe you've been disillusioned yourself. After all, you must have your act together to be a Christian, right? You've been saved by the God of the universe, so what choice do you have but happiness? Anything less than a broad grin would demonstrate your weakness, your lack of faith and gratitude. Growing up at church camp, I learned a song with these lyrics. I'm inright, outright, upright, downright, happy all the time. Since Jesus Christ came in and washed away my sin, I'm inright, outright, upright, downright, happy all the time. It's a fun song, but terrible theology. I'm here to confess that I've led kids in singing it without thinking about the damage such a belief could do. To dispel the myth that real Christians are always happy, we have to learn the truth about another word that is often equated with happiness: joy. And the first truth about joy is that joy is deeper than happiness. Have you spent much time around babies? Although we call them bundles of joy, for the first few months, their emotions are very basic. There are really three options: happy, sad, and neutral. Sad is obvious because they cry. Maybe because they're hungry, maybe tired or cold or bored. Happy is pretty straightforward too, because they get these glorious big grins on their faces when something makes them happy. For my grandson, that might be anything from a game of peekaboo to the sight of his picture on a phone screen. And neutral is everything in between. As we grow older, our emotions become more complex. They can also go beyond the circumstances at hand. When someone says to me, "You look really nice today," maybe I feel good, but maybe I also wonder how I look every other day that they'd be moved to comment on my appearance today. I once gave a talk to a group of Sunday school teachers at another church as part of their fall kickoff. Afterwards, the man who'd invited me to speak said, "That was great. It was a lot better than I'd expected." I was pleased and also a little bit annoyed. Happiness is a simple emotion. Circumstances converge to make you feel good. A smile appears on your face. You're happy. Joy is not so simple. Joy goes deeper. Joy is big picture. Joy is the belief rooted deep in your soul that God will fulfill his promises. It doesn't waver with changing circumstances, but it also doesn't always put a smile on your face. Consider the account of the first Easter. Matthew's gospel records the encounter of the Marys with the angel at the empty tomb. Matthew 28, beginning in verse 6, reads, "He is not here. He has risen, just as he said." So the women hurried away from the tomb, afraid, yet filled with joy, and ran to tell his disciples. What expression do you suppose they wore on their faces? I imagine it changed moment by moment as the reality of the situation struck them. Fear, amazement, laughter even, and alongside those conflicting emotions, a soul-deep fullness of joy. Because whatever the short term held, the big picture was intact. Jesus had risen just as he said. God had fulfilled his promise. The book of Philippians is full of joy. Scholars believe that Paul was actually in prison or under house arrest when he wrote his letter to the church in Philippi. Hardly happy circumstances, but Paul rejoices and prays with joy because of the soul-deep knowledge that this church he writes to loves the Lord and is intent on sharing that love. The big picture beyond the walls of his prison cell fills Paul with joy, and he urges these people to experience the same. In chapter 4, verse 4, he writes, "Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice." God is fulfilling his promises. The truth about joy is that it is much deeper than happiness. Paul's experience with joy isn't unique because the truth about joy is that it is often tethered to grief and suffering. 11-year-old Riley Anderson moved from Minnesota to San Francisco and struggled to fit in. She missed her friends, she missed the lakes, and she missed hockey. Riley's brain was full of emotions: disgust, joy, anger, sadness, fear. Depending on the circumstances, one or another would take the helm inside her brain. If you've seen the Pixar film Inside Out, you recognize Riley's story. And what makes her story so relatable is that we've all felt these warring emotions inside of ourselves. After a series of adventures and Riley trying to fit in, joy and sadness discover that Riley can only move forward to embrace her life in a new city when they work together. Riley has to acknowledge her sadness over the loss of her past before she can open herself up to the joy of her future. It's like Psalm 30, verse 5 tells us, "Weeping may tarry for the night, but joy comes in the morning." Or as Paul tells us, we are sorrowful yet always rejoicing. It's a classic push and pull. We only truly experience the depths of anything positive when we walk through the alternative. The warmth of the spring sunshine feels best after a cold winter, and a blast of air-conditioned air is most appreciated on a steamy August day in Alabama. In the same way, a soul-deep fullness of joy often comes at the end of a period of struggle or grief. Listen to these counterintuitive words from the start of the book of James. "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds." Your overall sense of well-being has probably been shaken at some point in your life. Mine was shaken just 6 weeks ago. I went to the doctor for my annual mammogram and was called back for a follow-up appointment. That was nothing new. I almost always get called for a follow-up. After my appointment, I sent this text to several friends. "Hey friends, had my follow-up mammogram this morning and I have a biopsy next Wednesday. It's probably nothing and I'm not overly concerned, but I'd appreciate your prayers." The morning after the biopsy, I got a call from the breast center to let me know that the tissue sample was full of cancer. Many of you have had a similar experience, if not for yourself, for someone you love. All of a sudden, you're faced with a new reality. This body has betrayed you and become sick. When people receive bad news, there is a strong temptation to be angry with God. Many people who believe in a good God are quick to question his goodness in times of struggle. But consider this: a good coach makes you run farther and faster so that you will become a better athlete. A good doctor tells you to go on a diet and get some exercise so that your body will last longer. A good friend tells you when to shut your mouth so you don't get in hot water. I believe in a good God, but that doesn't mean that he makes my life easy. He pushes me and challenges me and makes me be better because he has big things in store for me. Here's the rest of that passage in James. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. Before my diagnosis, I felt fine. No sign that anything was amiss, just normal life. Post-surgery, I sometimes experience a sharp stab of pain at the site where my cancer was. That pain is a source of joy, despite the discomfort, because it is a reminder that my invisible cancer was revealed and its source removed. When we choose to step back and see the big picture, in which God does not cause the bad things, but rather uses them to grow us if we let him, we are reminded that God is in control of the workings of the universe. Out of that is born not only relief and peace, but that soul-deep sense of joy, the belief that God will keep his promises. When I come back, we'll talk about the most important truth about joy, the truth about its source.
Jesus, you're my heart's first love, and you've been holding on to me. You once were the air I breathe, so still my heart to remember. Jesus, I am wandering, but you're chasing after me. You once gave your life for me. Still my soul to remember. Still my soul to remember. Your oceans wave without thinking. Your mountains rise without knowing. Your rivers run without needing to know where they are going. Your lilies spinning so free, oh, they're happy to be. So teach me this kind of humility. Teach me this kind of humility. Jesus, I am struggling. Lord, I'm struggling to see. I'm doubting your provision. Still my soul to remember that Jesus, you're my heart's first love, and you're leading me home through the fire and the flood. still my soul to remember. Your oceans wave without thinking. Your mountains rise without knowing. Your rivers run without needing to know where they are going. Your lilies spinning so free. Oh, they're happy to be. So teach me this kind of humility. Teach me this kind of humility. Jesus, you're my heart's first love.
Second Mile works to connect every individual to the love of Jesus by serving neighborhoods, strengthening schools, and empowering homes. Bill McDowell is the founder of Second Mile. Bill, welcome.
Thank you, Lisa.
What do you want people to know about Second Mile?
Well, I think what I would like for them to know is that we've been here in this community for going on 37 years now, just building relationships and trying to just build relationships so people know about Christ, and we can help provide resources and things for the community.
And a lot of that starts with your preschool here.
It does. The preschool is probably, I would say, is like some of the infrastructure in the community to build long-lasting relationships. We discovered a long time ago that research sort of showed that the most critical time for learning and also development is from the 3 to 5 year range. So a lot of the moms here in the neighborhood back in 1986, 1987 said there was no real good place for their kids to get early education. And at that time, the school, Terry Heights Elementary School, was the lowest performing school in the city. And all the kids, not all the kids, but a lot of the kids started out academically and developmentally behind in schools. And one of the neat things about the preschool here is we don't just work with the 3 to 5 year olds. We have a program called Parent Initiative that the parents work at developing parenting skills. And so we thought from the very beginning that what a child needs is a good advocate as they go through school and go through their education career, but the best advocate is the parent. And so we started teaching parenting skills over 30 years ago, and it goes hand in hand in our preschool as well. And
you have what are called parent parties. Now, I would have loved, when my kids were smaller, I would have loved to have gone to a parent party.
Right. Well, we backed into that. We were doing parent workshops and parent forums and parent education meetings over in Terry Heights Elementary School. And they are dismally attended. We would only have 5 or 6 parents attend. And one day, the ladies that were in charge of that, Mary and Jean, they were sitting out in the parking lot and they were sort of speculating on what to do, and they decided to have a birthday party for all the parents. And a lot of the parents in our community don't celebrate birthdays that much. So they had a birthday party, announced it, sent out flyers, and they had about 70 parents show up for a birthday party. And so out of that evolved a program called Parent Initiative and Parent Parties, and they started a slogan that said, "No more meetings for us, let's have a party." And so then they took all their curriculum they had and they rewrote it into a game format. It's been very successful here and elsewhere. There's like over 1,300 schools that use that curriculum around the country now.
Wow.
So
did that start with Second Mile?
It started right here at Terry Heights, in Terry Heights with Second Mile. We don't believe in everything being free. We think a lot of times when things are given freely, a lot of times it becomes a barrier to authentic relationship development. So in our preschool, we have a tuition that every parent has to pay, or they can work in our thrift store for the credit. So if they don't have the money, there's a way they can pay.
Well, I love what Second Mile does to really strengthen the whole community, because as you mentioned, everything is built on relationships.
Right.
And I love your Bible verse too, Matthew 5:41. And if one forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2 miles.
Right. And that's where we believe that relationship, where you really win the right to be heard, is in the second mile. When you only do what's expected, you haven't won any right to be heard. But when you go beyond that, is what Jesus means, is why you should go the second mile. You get the invitation then to share.
And make a difference.
Yeah, man, it makes a difference.
Thank you, Bill.
All right, thank you.
Today on TV Church, we've been talking about joy. Joy is deeper than happiness, and perhaps surprisingly, joy is often tethered to grief and suffering. The last and most important truth about joy is that joy has Jesus as its source. James McBride grew up in Harlem, the son of a Jewish mother and a black father. His mother, Ruth, was a character. You'd have to be. She was born in Poland, a rabbi's daughter. She moved to the South and married a black man, then helped found a Baptist church and put 12 children through college. McBride's book, The Color of Water, is his tribute to his mother, Ruth. When her second husband died, strong, capable Ruth was shattered. McBride writes, "It wasn't just that her husband was suddenly gone, it was the accumulation of a lifetime of silent suffering." Yet she continued. McBride describes her journey like this: Ma was utterly confused about all but one thing: Jesus. Her Orthodox Jewish ways had long since translated themselves into full-blown Christianity. Jesus gave Mommy hope. Jesus was Mommy's salvation. Jesus pressed her forward. Each and every Sunday, no matter how tired, depressed, or broke, she got up early, dressed in her best, and headed for church. Church revived her, filled her up, and each Sunday she returned a little more renewed. People in the most desperate straits have found a way not just to push through, but to experience the fullness of joy when they turn to Jesus. The writers of the Psalms knew that God was the source of joy. In Psalm 16:11, David wrote, "You make known to me the path of life. You will fill me with joy in your presence, with eternal pleasures at your right hand." In Galatians, we read that the Holy Spirit, the presence of God in his followers, produces fruit. Among these is joy. I have known struggle and loss. I can't imagine having to face such things without Jesus. With Jesus, I trust that there is a plan. With Jesus, I know that my pain will diminish. With Jesus, I know that I am loved to the point that he willingly gave his life to save mine. Through Jesus, I believe that God will keep his promises, and I am filled with joy. Years ago, when I was part of InterVarsity Christian Fellowship, I had some really big struggles. I discovered that those people who were often bubbly and chipper were not simply happy, they were filled with joy. When given the opportunity, they made themselves vulnerable and shared their own struggles and shortcomings, their doubts and disillusionment. They leaned on Jesus individually and collectively as the source of their joy. When it came time to share the news of my diagnosis, I struggled with the best way to tell people. Of course, I told my family and close friends. I also told my church family. Do you know what they did? They cried with me. Then they prayed for me. They didn't plaster on smiles and dole out platitudes. They connected me to the source of joy. My journey isn't over, but I can't explain the peace and, yes, the joy that I have felt these past few weeks, except to say that literally hundreds of people have been praying for me. All these beautiful people who love Jesus and love me enough to bring my needs to him. These real Christians who aren't happy all the time, but are filled with soul-deep joy from believing that God will keep his promises. I want to invite you some Sunday morning to walk inside the doors of a church. You're always welcome at 600 Governor's Drive, but we are not the only church. Walk inside a church near you, and you'll find a lot of people with smiles on their faces. You'll find a few with tears streaming down their faces. They're not happy all the time, but they have found joy, and they'd be happy to share it with you.
select and use every power as thou shalt choose, every power as thou shalt choose. Take my will and make it thine. It shall be no longer mine. Take my heart, it is thine own. It shall be thy royal throne. It shall be thy royal throne.
Hello, and thanks for joining us. I'm Tim Boone, Minister of Missions at First Baptist Huntsville. To be a follower of Jesus means that you're on mission. God calls all of us to join our hearts with God's heart for the world. I hope that you'll join us as we seek to be the church in the heart of the city, with a heart for the region and for the world. You can visit the missions page on our website to find different ways to serve right where you are, or you can join us as we travel outside of our city and throughout our world. You can also email me at tim@fbchsv.org. I'd love to hear from you.